So I mentioned this in my talk that I gave before to you guys about the transitioning from 3 foot in row to 2 or 2.5 in row planting spacing in commercial orchards. We have had a few multi-layer planting and a few on-farm tests using 9 or 18 or 20, 28 inches in the in-row planting space. But most of the current transition to higher planting density has occurred by using still 1 layer tree per root. We call it the machine, the robot ray tall spindle, a 3x11 or instead of 3x12. But there have been a significant amount of learning by grafting trees, mostly top and side grafting, and a few beaver grafting projects. So we have top, side grafting, and a little bit of beaver grafting project. That protocol of beaver grafting, I'm gonna be showing that because it makes sense, especially beaver graph for ambrosia, that I imagine ambrosia is something that you are still thinking to do something if you have all plantings. And I have some ambrosia grower doing through beaver graph and growing the new cultivar on 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 layers per tree. So this presentation has some of top working and side grafting and a little bit of beaver grafting, but I just want to mention that the beaver grafting protocols are being developed or fine-tuned as we speak. So creating opportunities by grafting. So a New York grower, at least for us, our reality, we have several existing model orchards with less profitable varieties and dwarfing roosters that need to be renewed and a tree density of 1,000 or more trees per acre, which is very expensive to renew by replanting. Grafting is a viable option. So replanting will take a minimum of 2 or 3 years to prepare the ground and plant, and then another 2 or 3 years to return to partial production. And since there is less site preparation and lower material costs, a grafted modern orchard can be producing a high valuable crop by year 2 or 3. If we are using those kind of old orchards that are not profitable for us, that have been our kind of situation that we are getting rid of several nice Empire, Macintosh, Cortland planting that are kind of modern planting density but we have in grafting. Okay, so this is another message about honeycrisp. We really want to rethink about what we have been doing through grafting with honeycrisp. So it's an imbalance between the bottom, the big root system, and the top of a new grafted cultivar. That vigorous regrowth and too much nitrogen of the scion wood can contribute to a delay in early production of fruit quality issue or bitter pit incident. We have been able to see this ratio of nitrogen to calcium that can affect overall fruit quality. And more recently, the potassium to calcium ratio in the peel sap, that if they are higher than 25, can increase bitter pit. So a grafted honeycrisp block can be a challenge even on a dwarfing stock and for experienced fruit grower. Think twice when planning to graft an old block to honeycrisp. So we start getting attention or paying attention to this and learning through data when we start comparing the behavior of honeycrisp and Gala. These are regular trees, these are not grafted trees, but it's just to illustrate that a Gala tree early, 14 days after full bloom, that little fruitlet that you have in that tree, okay, has kind of similar content early on between potassium between Gala and a honeycrisp fruitlet. But at the same time, it's a significant difference between the amount of calcium that you can see in the bulk fruit, whether it's the flesh, whether it's the peel, everything what we can grind and measure nutrient is a significant difference. It's a lot less calcium in the case of honeycrisp. It's a lot more calcium in total in the Gela fruit. So early on, at 14 days or 28 or 42 days, for us haven't been easy to really peel the fruitlets and measure the fruit peel that we're gonna analyze, whether through dry, okay, or the peel sap, that is the juice that we're able to get from the peel sap. But at around 56 days, that are these graphics that I am showing you here, around 56 days, that for us is early July, when the fruitlet or honeycrisp is around golf ball side, we are really able to see this difference. It's a real kind of separation that you cannot see in the bulk fruit data, but you can really see that separation between Gela and between honeycrisp, with Gela having a lot less potassium in the fruit peel compared with honeycrisp. And the opposite is also true in the case of Gela, with a lot more calcium in the peel compared with honeycrisp during the entire growing season. Okay, so if you see the values of this y-axis that I have here between the peel sap and the fruit peel, we can see that those ratios, their separation, are even more sensitive by using peel sap. By using peel sap instead of fruit peel, we can really see early on, detect very big difference between the amount of calcium and potassium in the peel in a honeycrisp fruit. And by using that information, you're gonna see that by following all these blocks through the last 3 years, in reality, we have been following all these blocks that I have here, honeycrisp, for 4 years. Every time that we have a potassium to calcium ratio from the peel sap above 20, 21, 22, or above 25, in this case, are blocks that have been grafted. Those are the blocks that we chose without knowing how bad or how good could be the peel sap that we start measuring in 2017. So as we start measuring the peel sap in July 2017 or July 18 or July 19, and if I could show you the July 20 data, we can see a progress where the peel sap ratio, potassium calcium ratio, is going down in some way, because we are trying to do everything possible to have better ratio or closer to 25 or lower than 25 through the years. So these are very bad ratios for this kind of 4 blocks that I have here. We have been trying to manage these blocks in a different way, but still in 2019, there is still around 30. And it's very difficult to change that situation when you are in a grafting situation. So for that reason, we took the decision in 2020, early 2020, we say, hey, we have to stop grafting to honeycrisp, especially with kind of highly vigorous cultivar, because growers are losing money. Packing houses are losing money. This is not working for us. Okay, so I just want to share that with you because we saw the data and this is not working for us. We cannot improve those ratios even, and those are good growers. All those growers that I had there, those are the best honeycrisp growers that we have, but they haven't been able to improve those ratios. So like a message is for you or for anybody thinking about grafting to honeycrisp, perhaps not the best way to do it. So other issue that I want to share is the lack of canopy uniformity have been a challenge. So when you start grafting and you start doing 1 liter or 2 liter or more liter, depending on whatever approach you want to take to the training of those scion wood, you're going to have irregular spacing between the leader, absence of leader, or poor development of short fruiting unit along the leader. And when this starts happening, growers have been kind of using a more intensive pruning or summer pruning to be able to influence or correct or redirect the growth where it is needed to quickly maximize canopy growth and uniformity. So by doing all those kind of things, many times you start delaying the first cropping for at least 1 or 2 more years, especially if you are going through a grafting situation. This starts happening. You delay the first cropping just because you start touching the tree and everything. You're trying to be uniform. Imagine if you are trying to be uniform in your management with 1,000 trees per acre. Imagine when you are doing 2,000 or 3,000 or more than that to be able to reach the top of the wire at the same time. It's more challenging. For you, it's still challenging to manage 8 or 9 or 1,000 liters per acre. So I wanna share this. This is the first publication. It's a spring 2012. If you go to the Fruit Quarterly website, if you Google the Fruit Quarterly and you go to the spring or to the year number spring 2012, you should be able to find this article about successful apple grafting techniques for New York. This is mainly the work done by Steve Hoyne until around 2009, 2010, when I came here and we were doing the top working, mainly the top working and managing the top work get treated in a different way that we are doing today, but it's a very, very useful article that you can review to get more information about a bunch of things about material, costs, and everything. The top working is still important. It's a significant amount of side grafting happening now through all these orchards that were planted early 2000, kind of the to a close modern planting density. That's grower side grafting, and also it's the Beaver Graph that I'm gonna be covering. These prices that I have here, the grafting costs are more kind of 2020 prices. I think so you should add 10, 15, 25 more cents in this quote that I got from a professional grafter that we have in our region last year. So, but perhaps these are not the current prices for this kind of techniques. Okay, so for the top worked tree, perhaps this is the first one to a honey crease where we have been dealing with bitter pit and issues. This is something that we are doing mechanical pruning. This is something that we make several mistakes because in reality, you don't see any kind of canopy, fruitful canopy working or here or here or here. It's just because we start doing short pruning like we do for a super spindle with 3 or 4 fingers all along the trunks, thinking that also we had to do it at the base, okay? And by doing that, we in reality ended up having very short fruiting units at the base. When you have a planting of 4x13 in this case, and you're doing mechanical pruning and trying to bring all these techniques, it's a lot better that you perhaps use a more hybrid approach that is this management, this lower part of the tree with a longer fruiting units to be able to fill this space. So we start letting these fruiting units to be more pending, longer, like in a traditional tall spindle planted at 3x12, because it's more a conical shape. We want to go taller in this project, but we also want to generate fruitful canopy at the base. So from the middle, from 4.5, 5 feet, or perhaps at that distance, makes sense to go short pruning, kind of like we are doing today for a narrow canopy. But at the bottom, especially for a top worker tree, where you start doing the top working too high just because you had to do it above any nursing limb viable that was there, make a lot more sense to start leaving kind of semi-longer, at least fruiting unit to be able to crop this section. Okay, so I just want to make sure that don't try to prune right away too short, like you have to prune the rest of the stems. I think it's better to really leave something a little longer or semi-longer to be able to have the amount of fruit here. And I don't think so we're gonna have issues of shading, just because these trees and this grower by doing are really doing very narrow tops. These are taller trees, especially when we have a spacing of 13 feet, the growers already know that they need to go taller when they are very narrow. So we are gonna have the right light to be able to crop and make money at that base. For the side grafted situation, that is this one, we have seen the evolution of many things. Okay, one is a grower or growers who are thinking that they want to leave the crop the year that they graft. So they're not going to lose that crop the year number one. Or some growers who are really managing the amount of light that scion wood is going to get year number one, and they remove some fruit at the base, at least the first 4.5, 5 feet. They really flash everything there, and they leave some crop at the top, and they ended up growing a decent tree, or a decent tree in the long term by keeping the crop, the full crop in year one, or by keeping 50% of the crop in year one, the year that you do the grafting. Okay, and on top of that, we have the approach that I don't have the drawing here, that is just to cut the tree, to cut the top, and just manage the nursing foliage in a way that it can allow us to maximize the scion growth in year one. So this is kind of leaving fruit at the top, but also if cutting the top or cutting the tree during the dormant season. So for now, if I'm gonna start grafting now in May, and I don't wanna keep the crop, the top, I'm gonna, by this moment, all those surcharges should be removed. So everything should be clean. And you go there in May just to do your grafting, and you don't have all the top of the tree. It's just what you need to be able to nurse that wood during the spring and summer of 2021. But I wanna kind of talk about the top, the two techniques of grower doing this. So this is one situation. This is the situation when from one side graft, we were able to do 2 stems. Okay, so just we have a grower who left the top the first year. He grew a very weak shoot the first year, but at the end, the grower ended up producing 2 shoots from one side graft. So this is the situation. This is a linden mac on B9. This is the first one that we did in the fall of 2011. We side grafted to New York 1, Fuji, and Gala in 2016. We kept the linden mac crop in 2016. We grew some shoot in 2017, and we selected and trained 2 leaders in 2018. So there you can see kind of the very ugly cat. That was the tree there. That was one side graft there. And from one side graft, one side wood, we were able to grow 2 shoots, 2 leaders. Okay, it's a very ugly positioning there, not the ideal, but that shows you the way how we can do a 2-leader Fuji trees on B9. This is B9 in Wayne County. The same, we did the same, believe it or not, we did the same, a 2-leader New York 1 tree on B9 by doing exactly the same, by leaving the top the first year, the year of grafting, by delaying the selection of that scion wood and managing to produce a 2-liter tree from one side graph. Okay, so it's not the same when I took the picture compared with the Fuji, it's not the same final tree height that you can get. But even with New York one on B9, that is a weaker root for us, we were able to produce 2 stems. This is the other situation. Is the side grafting to one single stem and keeping the top part of the tree with fruit the year of grafting. So here you can see the side graft. Here you can see that the grower flash everything until around 5 feet, 4.5 feet, to be able to have light to these shoots that is gonna grow that year of grafting. There you can already see the sign wood coming from this stick, and there you can start to see some of the plastic twine that the grower is using to be able to train as soon as possible this shoot in a more vertical position. And there you can see the fletching and the cut of all those fruiting units to be able to put more power and get more light for these shoots. So this is in the middle of the summer. Those are the shoots. I don't know if you can see the plastic twine there. Most of the shoots are gonna be long enough to be positioned in this plastic twine the first year as you keep the crop, in this case is Empire, at the top of these trees. There, another part of the year there I am with Jose Iñiguez, who is the grower, the owner who have been trialing this kind of technique here in New York. You can see some of the shoots. I am measuring shoots to get an average that day. But there you can see a long one already going all the way like that one. That has already the tree clip there. That was the tree clip, the original tree clip that was supporting the tree. That they removed that tree clip. They're using for the new scion wood. And this is gonna be twisted around to be able to keep growing that tree and get a decent production to pay for all the costs. Because that's what Jose was looking this year to try to see if he can really pay off the investment of the grafting of switching to this cultivar, to a new cultivar, by keeping the top of Empire and get 800 or 900 bushels per acre. So one thing I want to share with you is I was always very kind of incredulous. I didn't know how it's going to be the harvest of this fruit. Okay, are we going to damage? Are we going to have some mechanical injury, some kind of loss by going there with people, with beans, with equipment, anything? To be honest, like the people were so careful because a good communication in the crew there, that very few shoots were lost as a result of the harvest. So I think so that worked, and those are 11 feet. There we have 11 feet, so it's a lot of traffic at harvest to pick that fruit. So that is the site. Again, in the fall of Empire on B9 with the wood. This is Jose Iñiguez's site. And if you recall, there was another grower in Michigan when we attended the IFTA, the winter conference in 2020 last year. We saw this one. This was Pink Lady on G11. And for me, it was very nice to see that that grower wasn't using the plastic twine like Jose, but there you can see the grower was using this tape to be able to get the support. And he was also getting some production at the top. We didn't stop here. We went to a different site. But I saw this happening in Michigan. So Michigan growers always, even before than Jose, have been trialing this thing and have been working for them, I think. I think so. Jose is trying to improve the protocol, but he's very pleased. And I think so all the side grafting from now on is gonna go with this technique by keeping the top. Okay, so here I'm gonna switch a little bit, because when you side graft, sometimes growers are impatient about managing nursing foliage, and sometimes growers want to keep the nursing foliage or the full trunk that they left there, of the half trunk that they left there by pruning, okay? Or sometimes they just cut the trunk early on to be able to allocate as much energy to the sign wood. So far we have been leaving the half trunk because we believe that gives you a lot of push, not just to the sign, but also to the old tree. And that move also benefit the sign wood. And you try to manage that competition through pruning or early defruiting. Okay, so you try to remove all the flowers or the early fruitlets that the top of that half trunk of the old tree is gonna give you, because you are trying to benefit the new sign wood that is there. So you try to manage, or at least you should try to manage that during the growing season, during the spring, during fruit set, and during the early part of the summer. But I show you this because I was getting so many questions from growers were all over that they decided to measure this. And when I measured the leader growth of the scion wood, of the new scion wood that is there, when I measured in August of 2019, when they took out the entire trunk, kind of what I was measuring was very similar, kind of was taller, longer than by leaving a half trunk or the full trunk. With leaving the full trunk was the strongest competition. Okay, without leaving the trunk, we get the most growth in the leader growth. And when I come back in the winter season to see the final growth that we got in September, because I measured in August, it was early August. Later, I had to go to trial of things that I had to do. I couldn't measure, but I want to get an idea how much growth I got from these treatments. Again, the no trunk treatment was showing the longer sign wood extension vertical growth compared with the half trunk or the full trunk. So this one grew very little. This one grew a little more. This one grew more, but was significant different compared with this. Based on this, I still not recommending to cut the trunk right away early in the season. It's something that I want to continue learning from growers as I measure things in real conditions. Still, we are trying to manage half of the trunk for the traditional side grafting situation where the grower is not leaving the top. We have very few growers doing that. That's, I think so it's more a recent approach that very few growers in the case of Jose Ñigue is taking. I think so the most traditional approach is to manage half of the trunk and the nursing foliage during the growing season. So that way I have this picture that is the traditional approach to a side grafting situation where you have, whether it's planted at 2 feet or 3 feet, where you leave the top, where you even let the fruit set, like you can see there, and you remove some foliage, but you really start pruning in this direction. All the stakes are facing to the south, and during the season, you really manage the nursing foliage. So this is something at the end of the season, you can see the scion wood going in that direction. the new shoot is going in that direction, and that shoot is still growing. But you can see that in some moment during the summer, by late June, early July, from the west side, if all these rows are north-south, you should remove all the nursing foliage that is facing to the west. So those shoots that is growing there at that time of the year is able to get the most light to maximize vertical growth. Okay, you don't remove everything immediately in the growing season, but in some moment, if you see the west side and you see the same row from the east side, you should see the greening of the nursing foliage only in the east side, and you shouldn't see anything in the west side. You just should see the yellowing color of the paint that was done when the grafting was done in May. Okay, so had to be very uniform the west side. By October, you shouldn't have anything. This picture could be more beautiful if I took this picture in July, for example, to show you that here after pruning is nothing. Okay, you had a small signwood growing there, but in the west side, you just see the yellowing of the tape painted there. Okay, now it's not so obvious, okay, because you have more foliage from this side, but we only ended up with foliage in the east side when we side graph, just because we want to maximize light interception for these new shoots. And there you can see the training, the intensive training by twisting that shoot in the main layer.
Mario, we're getting a little short on time.
Sorry?
We're getting a little short on time, and it'd be nice to have time for questions. So,
Okay.
so how are you doing? How close are you?
I can go faster, perhaps. I just want to mention the west side and the east side. It's the same picture, but you have to cut that with a knife. I want to emphasize that that is very, very important, at least for us, to cut that tape before we go to the winter. We have to cut that thing, so we avoid any issue with diseases the following spring and everything dry out. That is the situation once we cut the trunk early spring, late dormant season, we had the shoot there. And we grew the shoot, we do a bunch of manipulation, we grow the shoot, we do the kind of the 3-4 pruning cuts. In this case, when we're planting a 2.5. So very similar to what we're doing in the nursery, but we can do it in a grafted situation. So that was very similar. And you ended up with a grafted tree through side grafting with something like that. This is the Beaver Graph. Kind of the Beaver Graph is something that we are just learning. You do your Beaver Graph in year 1. This is for big trees. You put your tree sticks, you train, you have your tree leaders. This is the most ideal side once I remove the entire other second half of the trunk in year 1. This is the first tree, the best tree that I can show you, but we have a lot of mortality just because we cut too soon the second half of the trunks. So we are not recommending to cut the second half of the trunk right away. We are really thinking to include a second year of grafting in the second half of the moon when you cut the trunk, definitely. So it's a late grafting just to be able to suck it up all the sap that is going to come from those big roots in this situation. So in May, we had the shoots that grew the first year of the grafting, but also you have in May or in August, the second half that was grafted just to contain the growth of that part of the tree after the pruning. So those are small shoots that we grew. That the final main tree stems. We didn't have the competition that you can see there. So the other half of that trunk was grafted also, but still all the energy goes to the main trunks. There you can see the old trees. You can see the main stems. And this shows you the uniformity that we got by doing 2 years of grafting consecutively. new posts to go tall. We're finishing this project still. Okay, so this is a summary that I have for new cultivars, the way how to use the grafting technique, the positioning of the shoots, and some comments about honeycrisp, and some notes for the existing orchard and the trellis.